seems like an appropriate thing because I know your mind is really on this topic and it's something that we both get outrageously passionate about right now, is one word, and it's the word operationalization. And so I think that's where I'd like to start. I'd like you to start just by kind of discussing why that word is something you're passionate about. And then maybe it'll be fun to dive into how that fits into our business and the businesses that we work with.
Sure. Yeah. Operationalization. Man, it's just a funny word to say out loud, first of all. Like it feels like a $10 word and that makes me not feel great about it. But um yeah, operationalization. When I think about operationalizing something, like we can just turn something into a machine or maybe and people don't always relate to that. And so maybe just turn it more into what it's could be or maybe supposed to be or
Mm.
turning something into its most effective state, so to speak, is what kind of comes to mind when I think of that word. Um, and then just in the way in which we've kind of defined what operationalization means, um, a lot of it has some influence from Toyota production system and lean culture and but the whole idea of having a standard, having that standard written down somewhere so you could train to that standard, having a way in which you can evaluate the execution of that standard, and then having a way in which you can improve that standard. And so, kind of like a cyclical process is what operationalizing something is. So, having a standard, writing that standard, evaluating the standard, and improving the standard. Um, yeah.
And it was so cool how we came to that. I was thinking about this morning. It was, gosh, I guess it was back in August when you and I were sitting down and we had kind of our first of what will now be full day quarterly planning meetings with our leadership team. And that at that time, the leadership team was you and I. And I'll never forget the room. It was that room in Kinship Landing in Colorado Springs because it was just after our retreat, and it had that garage door, and it just snowed the night before on top of Pikes Peak, so we had this incredible view of Pikes Peak, and you could see the snow on top, which was just so cool. Um, but it was in that time that we said, okay, one of our objectives out of this time together today is not, we weren't really saying our objective is to talk about the topic of operationalization as it relates to our business. We said that the objective for today is to define the long term dream for our business. And in light of the long term dream for our business, what are we going to be focused on for the next 3 to 5 years for our business? And it was so cool because you and I had kind of had coffee discussions, voice memo discussions, or what feels like a voice memo podcast episode sometimes, and just so much back and forth talking about the dream for our business. And then it was out of talking about that dream that we said, okay, in light of the big dream of what we want to do with regard to shifting people's paradigms with regard to personal growth and leadership and making a legitimate system that could teach people how to make an impact using the business they've been given, how to create cultures of vitality and health for business owners around the country. We kind of cast that dream, cast that vision. There's a lot more even than that. And we said, okay, within that, if we want all of that to occur, what do we need to focus on for the next 3 years? And I think it was out of that conversation that we literally said, okay, well, it seems like we've got to take what we're doing right now and we started using that word. We got to operationalize it. And so can you explain the logic behind that being the next step for us? Because it's something that, like, I mean, every person's eyes on our team are on that word and that's their focus right now. So explain why that was the logical next step in that sequence of conversation for us.
Yeah. I mean, we had hours of conversation around this. And so what comes to mind as kind of themes that um, draw it all together is that one of our core values in our business is alignment. And kind of one of the things that we're doing is setting the example and being the standard for the things that we teach. So we're not teaching things that we don't practice, and we become experts, so to say, and those various strategies or tactics and the principles. And so us just really practicing in that on a day basis. And the principle with operationalize was like, man, let's get our house in order. Like, let's get our business in order. And if we do that, like, that is going to set us up well to then be influential and impactful for the folks that we serve. and the customers that were served. And I think that that
And what's
really
so
just led
cool
itself
is
into yeah,
Oh, yes, I agree, and I think you and I were in step on what in order means, which you kinda mentioned that
yeah.
yesterday in our next quarterly strategic planning meeting, which was yesterday. Like, you and I kind of, like, when we both said in order, it's one of the reasons why I think you and I work well together is we both have an understanding of what that means. So, like, when you think of something being in order, what do you think of?
Um, hmm. The thing that comes to mind for me is just like, uh so obviously Jordan Peterson comes to mind, and the whole, like, order and
I
chaos and
love it.
12 like, all of that good stuff. But then, like, I also think, like, really beautiful, like, orchestras or like, it is just, um the potential for chaos is so large, but when you can have that creativity and the beauty come together and it looks like, um, nothing's maybe I don't know if nothing special is happening. It's like one of those things of, like, if you don't notice, um, n something's wrong, then you don't see it. Like, it's just all kind of
Mm,
flowing and going and moving and doing what it's supposed to do, and so you just don't notice it. It maybe fades to the background, and you see the creative highlights in there. Like, you see the beauty or the rainbows or the sparks. You see those things that kind of highlight the moment, rather than the things that you shouldn't be seeing that just don't matter to you as the, viewer or customer or, the person being served by whatever's going on. And so I think a little bit like mise en place, like, um,
that's a French word,
it's
right? French
I
phrase?
think so, yeah. Whenever I
Look at
think of
you.
mise en
You
place,
say
it's
you
like
got
a
problems with $10 words, and then you start using French on the podcast, Zach. You can't do
well,
that.
I mean, so, like, bourbon steak, like Patrick Emo, like that all those influences and, like, when we think really, really nice restaurants and teams that come together and make something beautiful happen, um, you can imagine a scenario in which, uh, like, all of that stuff is just coming together, and for the customer, it's a beautiful experience, but meanwhile, like, there's a lot of hard work going on in the background and a lot of levers and variables that any one of them go wrong, the customer will notice, um,
Mm.
or whoever's being served will notice. And so, yeah, I just like whenever there's order, I mean, I don't know. That's what comes to mind for order. A machine that's doing what it's supposed to do. And again, my background's in manufacturing, and so I just think about like, okay, a machine's supposed to be running. It needs to be maintained. If it's down, that's a problem, like, it's not doing what it's supposed to do, like, it's not doing what it was made for, and so whenever like, we wanna keep that machine going and flowing and doing what it's supposed to do so it creates value. Um, yeah,
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 I
that's what
heard
my
a
perspective.
quote. I can't remember if I shared this with you or not, and you may even know who originated this quote. I don't know who first said it, but it was that every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it gets.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so it's like, are you getting the desired results? And it's like, well, no. Okay. Maybe it's not that the system's incorrect. Maybe the system is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and it's just the wrong, like, you're using the wrong system. So maybe you need to either build a system or fix the system. Man, it's so funny. You use orchestra, and I think Chick-fil-A drive-through. And
Yeah.
and it's like, in some ways, Chick-fil-A drive-through is a symphony, right? It's like,
Mm,
man, you see all these people playing their individual role, and they're taking it so seriously, and they apply attention to detail. It's fascinating. You've been to a couple of these. Whenever I teach ownership mentality team training, one of the first things we say in that team training whenever we're working with teams, I don't know if I've shared this with you or not, Zach. One of the first things we share is we say, okay, what does uh, uh, ownership mentality mean, or what does ownership mentality do? We say it means you care deeply, it means you engage actively, and it means you grow aggressively, right? And those are the three things. And I say, okay, let's start with that first one. Care deeply. It means that you care deeply. I want you all just real quick to think of an organization that stands out as deeply caring, and I tell them think about it, and then I say, okay, what are your thoughts here? And this is crazy. I have never been to a place that one of the first responses isn't Chick-fil-A. It's gotten to the point where I have to say you
yeah.
can't use Chick-fil-A because we already know everyone's going to use that. And then we always go into this great discussion about, okay, why is it that we all say Chick-fil-A? And what they always reference is, man, the details. Everything is as it should be. And not only everything is as it should be, is they know what it should be and then they do what it should be. And I think that
Mhm.
speaks to kind of what we're talking about here with the idea of like, first you got to have the standard and then you've got to follow the standard.